Welcome to Fancy Thinker. I'm Jared, and now it is time for the April 2026 updates. Reading update for the month, what I read March, what I'm reading right now, and what I plan to read soon, and for the month of April. Yeah. So, yeah, March was a pretty big month for me. Got a lot of stuff done, a lot of stuff in the works, and having a great time reading overall. But first, the cat says, "Don't step on me," right? So, uh, yes, that's this is an incredible reading month, I think. So let's get right into it. What did I finish off in March? I finished off quite a bit. First things first. This is my reread of the Gap Cycle by Stephen R. Donaldson. This is the second book, Forbidden Knowledge: The Gap into Vision, and this is where um, we get a deep dive into the character of Morn Highland, who's kind of the heroine of the series. Although Donaldson changes things up from book to book. So, but this book is the second book in that series, and was really cool. This is my reread of the 25 years, so it's been quite the journey back into that series that I really was one of my favorites way back when, and will probably still be one of my favorites going forward. I also read for the Speculative Speculations podcast, Solaris by Stanislaw Lem, classic sci-fi from 1961, and yeah, this did not disappoint. This was a really cool read. I liked it a lot. We had fun talking about that on the podcast. I also finished. You can't see it on here, but it's called "A Case of Conscience" by James Blish for the Sci-Fi Masterwork read along, and it's in this neat collection of 5 novels from the late '50s. Classic American science fiction, and this this book, "A Case of Conscience" by James Blish, was okay. um, it was there was a lot of neat ideas in it, and but it was uh, it was a interesting read, to say the least, um, and much better than his first foray, Cities in Flight. But anyways, finished off "A Case of Conscience" by James Blish. All right. Also, I finished off two. Yeah, that's right. Two books by Janny Wurts. First one was Keeper of the Keys, Book 2 in the Cycle of Fire. And then I went right into Shadowfane, Book 3 in the Cycle of Fire, which is very strange for me to do. I don't normally read one book and go jump right into the next in a series. I tend to split things up, as you can tell. I read a lot of different things. Uh, so that was very strange for me to just jump right with one into the other. But with this really cool story, I had no problem doing that. Janny Wurts, her writing is impeccable once again, and it was cool because these were short novels. I imagine that if the 3 books in this series were collected into one, they'd probably be with the same length of one of the Wars of Light and Shadow novels. But really, really cool series, really cool story, and you really get a look at some of the ideas as she was percolating for her bigger Wars of Light and Shadows series. But I finished off both of those books. And one more thing that I finished off before we move on to some other stuff. I also read this graphic novel, Drain Theater Parasomnia, the graphic album. So it was pretty cool. I really enjoyed the um, the stories in here based upon the songs from the album Parasomnia, and it's not a concept album per se, like the story wise. Each song is a different story, and so each interpretation of these different stories was different in here, different artist, different writer, and stuff. But it's all pretty cool stuff, you know. One of the stories was drawn by Ryan Kelly from Assassin's Apprentice fame, and he is a fantastic artist. So it was really cool seeing him in here as well. Um, yeah, so if you're a Dream Theater fan, if you're a heavy metal fan, and you're a fan of horror type, nightmare type stuff, then pick that up. So as I was saying, I read these two books right in a row. It's two books in a series right in a row. I don't normally do that, but because of my schedule and I was traveling during the month of March, it just worked out that way that I finished one book right before I went to the airport, and then I took the other one with me to the airport to have something to read in the plane, and it just worked out that way. And it worked out well because um, where I was going was ICFA, the International Conference for the Fantastic and the Arts, and I did meet up with Janny Wurts down there, and so she was so kind to sign my copy of Shadow Fane, um, and she's just so kind, anyways, in person to talk to, and so that was a blast. I also got to talk to quite a bit, Mr. Stephen Donaldson himself. So that's always cool when I get a chance to talk to him because he is really just the nicest guy, and he has just a lot of great stories from back in the days of publishing and stuff like that. So it was just a good time talking to those guys. I met up with AP from A Critical Dragon as well, talked to him for a bit, and I met up with Alex from Books on Banks, and that was fun. And I met up with Jake from Nerd Level Rising as well. So cheers to everyone there. All right. So that's a little story for you. Okay, that's I think everything I read in March, book wise. Now the glory of short story, right? uh, all right, so we finished for my short fiction side hustle series, which the video should be out this coming week. We read two more short stories from Donaldson's Daughter of Regals and Other Tales. The stories we read this month were Unworthy of the Angel and The Conqueror Worm. Both of them we had a great time talking about these stories. Unworthy of the Angels was considered religious fantasy, but it was pretty dark, and it was a good read. And the Conqueror Worm was a very short, only 10-page psychological horror type thing, uh, with a centipede. So it was creepy. It was good, and we had a good time. All right, from the Asimov Science Fiction magazine here, the March April edition of 2024. I read a story called The Last Cloud Painter by Rajan Khanna. And I had a good time with this story. It's basically about a guy who paints clouds. And this was back in, it takes place back in the late 19th century. And he uses a balloon to go up and paint clouds. And, there's a little bit of magical stuff going on there. And so it was pretty cool. It was pretty neat, interesting story, um, and I really really got a kick out of it. So yeah, I read another little story from Strange Stories from his Chinese studio, Chinese Myths and Folk Tales. Yeah, I read another story out of here, and it was called let's see here, The Lost Brother. And so what we will say is it was another strange story that about somebody dying, coming back, and uh, magically, when the person comes back, things work out so that somebody finds money so they can live happily ever after. Another strange story. All right, moving on. We also read out of the book of the big book of science fiction for the podcast Speculative Speculations. We read a story called Snow by John Crowley. It was a pretty cool story about memories and how they relate to recordings of them in a sci-fi kind of way. Uh, we read a story called Pots by C.J. Cherry, which is cool. Her great prose in that story. She's really a really good writer. Again, it was a great story about trying to find the origins of mankind through space, but very nice prose. And we read a story called "The Lake Was Full of Artificial Things" by Karen J. Fowler. Um, another story about memory, and it was very interesting. And this was more related to memory, using memory in a VR type of way as a means of therapy. So it was pretty neat. Um, so yeah, cool stories from that book. I also read another short story out of uh, what is that? Yeah, Shapers of World, Volume 5, and that is called Coming of Age by Ido van Belkom. Um, I wasn't big on this one. This was a story about a world where children can no longer develop normally, and so they kind of just stay a child forever, even though their body is still growing up. But I don't know. The story was kind of unresolved, and I didn't really like how it ended, or how it didn't resolve. That was a problem. It just didn't resolve. So that was that. And I also read another issue of the Free Inquiry magazine, journal of celebrating reason and humanity. And there was, and then I don't usually mention this, but there was an interesting article in here about determinism, free will, and moral responsibility. There was actually a back and forth between two different writers, and so that was the interesting part. You got both viewpoints, and I know this is kind of a big topic when people discuss Scott Baker's uh, fantasy series. What's it called? There, it's called The Darkness That Comes Before. That's the first book, and I don't remember the name of the series. I got it right here. The Prince of Nothing, book one. So I picked this up at ICFA. So that I know that discussion about free will comes up in those books, and I I found it very interesting that the discussion in this magazine. So that's all. What else do we got? I think that's everything I read. So, what am I reading right now? Let's see here. Yeah, of course. I am continuing my deep dive into Stephen Erickson's Forge of Darkness. I have read another few chapters, so we're making our way through that slowly and surely. So check out my videos on that if you've read the book. Of course, they're very spoilery. Um, I am also continuing on into the gap cycle with A Dark and Hungry God Arises. And I'm actually flying through this. I only got about 150 pages to go. And I'm reading this with read along with Josh from Red Fairy Books and the Fireside Discord. And having a good time with it. I'm really enjoying this reread, and I've already talked about this series, but I should finish this up in the next few days. And I'm also reading for the science speculative speculation podcast. I'm reading Absolution Gap, book 3 in the Inhibitor trilogy by Alastair Reynolds, and still hasn't really made me go wow. Well, hasn't hasn't floored me with it's weird. It's floored me with the ideas, or have floored me. They're great. The character work has not, and so that's where I'm, uh, you know, going. It's kind of like I feel like I'm bouncing around to wow, up and down with this book. But we'll continue reading on, and I plan to finish that off in the next couple months here. Let's see here. What else am I reading? No, that's what I'm reading right now. Okay, so in April, as soon as I'm done with A Dark and Hungry God Arises, I will be continuing on with Chaos and Order, and yeah, looking forward to that immensely. Um, for the next sci-fi masterwork read, we'll be reading M. John Harrison's The Centauri Device. It's a nice short one, so I'm looking forward to that. And I also will be picking up. I think. Yeah, no, that's it for now. I think. Oh, I almost forgot because I don't have a physical copy. I read it on a Kindle. Um, I read Thomas Devon's The Scroungers, a novella by Thomas Devons. And I got to tell you, this was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. The premise is this big battle happens, and all these, the I guess one of the nobles who's leading this whole thing is a real piece of work, and he dies, and then the soldiers on both sides kind of find themselves in this town, and they kind of just walk away from the battle, like the conflict, because they don't seem to be fighting over anything anymore, and they help this town get their their recover from all the ravages of war, and and the interactions and stuff. It was really really cool. And it's a novella that's in this setting called Vermin of the Old Empire, and The Scroungers by Thomas Devon. So check it out if you get a chance. Uh, it was a good time, really good time. So I also finished that off. All right, and I think, wow, I think that covers everything. So that we've been at this a little while here, and as I go down my list here, I think I'm doing all right. Yeah, yeah, okay, wow, and yeah. With all that said, uh, let me know everything you've read in the month of March, or what you're reading now and coming up, and be good to each other. And thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if